So guys, I hope you are all set to start this chapter, and the topic is body fluids and circulation. So I understand that this particular chapter has something to do with these kind of fluids which are present inside the body which will help in circulation. Fluids present inside the body which will help in circulation are primarily dealt in this particular chapter, right, in your entire course for the NEET exam. So the point is that there are two important fluids. Two fluids are discussed in this chapter, and those two fluids are, the first one is quite obviously your blood. This is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say body fluid. And the second one is the lymph. Blood and lymph. Remember, lymph is derived from the blood. Lymph is coming out of the blood. It has some function which is very similar to the blood, that is circulation and transferring materials between the cells and the lymph, and then it goes back to the blood. So lymph is coming out of the blood and lymph will go back into the blood. So this is the basic idea that you're supposed to have. So blood is the chief circulatory fluid inside the human body, and from the blood lymph comes, and the lymph does its function, it goes back into the blood. So this is the very basic idea that you're supposed to have. So in this particular chapter, we are supposed to know the composition of blood and lymph, and then we'll have to talk about certain basic facts and basic aspects related to blood and lymph. And that is all this chapter is about. And there are certain organs which are connected with the blood, and the heart is there, and we are supposed to learn a lot of things with respect to the heart also. It's a very expansive topic, but yes, it's very interesting. It's a bit challenging also to remember everything, but yes, it's quite interesting. So please be very conceptual in your approach, so that can help you in understanding the concept very much. Now, let us first talk about blood here, because the NCERT itself is starting with the blood. So in blood, remember, it is a specialized connective tissue. It is a specialized connective tissue. You might have learned in the topic of structural organization in animals that you have three types of connective tissue: loose, dense, and specialized, isn't it? Loose connective tissue, dense connective tissue, specialized connective tissue. So this is a link between this chapter and the structural organization in animals chapter, right? Second point to remember is that it is the most common circulatory fluid. It is the most common circulatory fluid in higher organisms. This is the interesting fact about the pre-MBBS exam or the NEET exam, that after your MBBS, when you get into MBBS, you will actually have to learn only about one organism, that is humans, and certain other things related to humans, nothing else. But here you are supposed to learn about all the taxonomical classification and all the higher organisms. You should have an idea, right? So that's the interesting feature about NEET exam. So yes, it is the most common circulatory fluid in the higher organisms or the humans. So this is a very important NCERT statement which is given in the introductory part. So I found this to be very important. So I have just written that because you can get a question, which of the following is the most common circulatory fluid in organisms, and then they will give you blood, lymph, and something else will also be given, isn't it? So you have to select this. Now, what is there? Let us talk about the volume of blood. The total volume of blood is, you can remember it as around 5 liters. Something which is near 5 liters. Something which is similar to 5000 ml. And if I just talk about a value that I got from a standard textbook, a very good textbook, it is 5600 ml, or I can say 5.6 liters in a 70 kg man. Right? So this is the very basic idea that you're supposed to have. What is the total volume of blood inside your body? So that's around 5 liters, and that is exactly given to be 5600 or nearly 5600 ml in a 70 kg man. So this is a normal value of blood over there. If you are having less amount of blood, that means you are having some kind of a disease, or you can say that you are bleeding too much. So there was an injury and you are bleeding excessively, and due to which a lot of blood has gone out of your body, so that can lead to other problems. So this normal value you are supposed to remember, right? Nearly 5 liters, or you can remember this also. This is a very standard value that you can remember. Now, with this in hand, let us first talk about a very important high yielding area, and every year you are getting questions from this, and that is composition of blood. right? This is a very high yielding area. We are supposed to learn this in a very expansive way, very conceptual way also. Let's go to that now. So let us go to this particular topic, that is composition of blood. So I would like to begin this by actually enlisting all the important components of the blood in this particular flow chart, and it would be good if you take this down in this particular format itself. So blood is actually composed of two things. You have certain formed elements in this. These are called by the name of formed elements. Formed elements. These are present in a fluid, and this fluid part of the blood is called by the name of plasma. Right? So these are your formed elements, which are certain structures, things which are present inside the plasma, which is the fluid part of the blood. So you will define plasma as the fluid part of the blood. Is called by the name of plasma. The plasma has a contribution of 55% of the total blood. So the total blood, 55% is plasma, and formed elements will form 45% of the plasma. Right? Now let us talk about the plasma components. The plasma, which is the fluid, it has a lot of things which are dissolved in it, right? It has a lot of things which are present inside it, and those things which are not dissolved in plasma are called by the name of formed elements, and you have three things in formed elements. In plasma, you have certain structures which are dissolved in it. So let us talk about the dissolved things in plasma now. So the plasma contains two things basically, and then there are many other miscellaneous components also. The first important component of plasma, it is a fluid. So remember, water is a major component. Right? Water is the major component of plasma, and it has a contribution of 92% of plasma is formed by water. So plasma is forming 55% of your blood, and in this 55% plasma, there is 92% of water which is forming this particular plasma. So plasma is formed by 92% is water, and the rest, that is 6 to 8%, is actually formed by proteins. So these are your very important proteins, which are called by the name of plasma proteins because they are inside the plasma. So you have three important, very important names to remember here. The proteins are albumin, the second one is globulin, and the third one is fibrinogen. Right? So you have three important plasma proteins which contribute almost 6 to 8% of total plasma, and that is albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. It has certain important features. Right? Now the third part are certain miscellaneous components of plasma. We are supposed to remember this because it is given in NCERT, so we will remember everything. So it has a lot of minerals. Right? So it has a lot of ions, it has a lot of minerals. Let's just remember the ions over here. So it includes sodium, very important. Like if the sodium of a person is reducing in plasma, then he will be in a state of delirium. He will be confused. So he will not be active. So the sodium inside the plasma has a lot of importance. And that is why we say that, okay, in elderly persons who are very old, you will have to monitor their sodium. So if at all their sodium goes below the normal state, then they will develop a very tired kind of a look, and they will not at all be active. So those are certain things, and they can have certain other abnormal kind of behavior also when sodium is fluctuating inside your blood. So sodium, blood sodium is very important. Plasma sodium is a very important thing so far as the medical practice is concerned. The second one is calcium. Right? Next you have magnesium. Then you have the basic ion HCO3 minus, it is alkaline bicarbonate ion, and you have chloride also here, right? Along with that, you have certain other components, that is glucose. You might be knowing that whenever the blood glucose of a person is high, then he is having a disease called by the name of diabetes mellitus. It is beyond the normal level. Then if the glucose goes beyond the normal level for that particular time, then you will say that this person is having diabetes mellitus. Now this is a very important component. So where exactly in the blood do you see glucose? Glucose is present inside the plasma, right? So that is a very important thing. Then you have amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. You have lipids, cholesterol, triacylglycerol, all these things will be there inside the plasma. Your LDL, HDL. These are your cholesterol, isn't it? This is the bad cholesterol, this is the good cholesterol. Then you have this particular other things like total cholesterol. Then there is something called by the name of triacylglycerol, which is the storage form of cholesterol. This is the storage form of lipid in your body. So all these things will be there inside the blood. So where exactly in the blood? It is there in plasma. If the lipids are high, you will say that he is suffering from high cholesterol, and you have to give drugs to reduce this particular cholesterol. If there is a high cholesterol inside the blood which is beyond the normal limits, there is an increased risk of developing atherosclerosis, or there is an increased risk of developing heart attacks, right? So the vessels can be blocked by this accumulation of cholesterol which is present inside the blood. So all these components are there, and then there is another component, that is your hormones. You might be knowing that hormones are produced by endocrine organs. Endocrine organs are ductless organs. They don't have any duct, so they cannot target target site, isn't it? So if there is a duct, it can give its secretions through this duct, and the duct will go to wherever it is supposed to go. But here they don't have any duct to target an organ. So what they do, they will directly release the organ, they will directly release the hormones into the blood. The blood will take it to wherever it is required. So where exactly in the blood are these hormones present? These hormones are present inside the plasma. Remember, most of the hormones are proteins, and yeah, there are multiple subtypes of hormones which we are supposed to remember in another chapter that is coming in this class 11 this itself, isn't it? So these are the components of plasma, and I have just listed everything that is there in NCERT in this particular table, right? So if we are done with that, let us talk about the formed elements which are present inside the plasma. So the very basic idea is that formed elements are certain cells which are present that will not dissolve in the plasma. You cannot dissolve a cell inside the plasma, because it is a cell, means it is bounded by a cell organelle, cell membrane, and inside you have all the structural machinery of a cell. So that will not be dissolved in the plasma. It will stay as it is within the blood. So you will call them as the formed elements. Now the cells are formed inside the bone marrow in an adult, right? Inside the bone marrow. Right, if it is a child before birth it is formed inside the yolk sac, liver, spleen, etc. And once the person is born, and then when he becomes mature, the formation of blood cells are exclusively in the bone marrow. Remember, what is the site of hematopoiesis? Hematopoiesis, blood formation. That means the formed elements are formed inside the bone marrow. So let us enlist the important formed elements over here, and those are, we all know this, RBC, which are also called by the name of erythroblast, erythrocytes, erythro, the word erythro means red, and cyte means cell, right? This erythro means red and cyte means cell. Then you have WBC, these are called by the name of leukocytes. This leuco means white, and cyte again means cell. Then another one is your platelets, right? So these are called by the name of thrombocytes. Thrombus, the word thrombus means clot, right? And this cell means, cyte means cell. So these are certain cells which will help in clotting. So these are certain cells which will help in clotting, and that is the word meaning of saying thrombocytes. So these are cells which are helping in clotting, and that is what we mean by thrombocytes. So these are just, and I have just enlisted everything that is there in NCERT in this particular format. It would be very good if you can write it in this particular format, and you can keep on revising this till this becomes very much thorough, right? Now let us talk about certain very important aspects of the plasma proteins and these kind of cells. Let us now talk about the plasma proteins in slightly good detail, right? Let us talk about the plasma protein here. Now albumin, globulin and fibrinogen are the three important plasma proteins. The maximum amount of plasma protein is by albumin. Albumin is present in maximum amount when you compare these three plasma proteins in the amount of that they are present inside the blood. So albumin is the highest amount of plasma protein which is present inside the blood. Now albumin is synthesized by the liver. It is synthesized by the liver. In fact, even fibrinogen is also synthesized by the liver. right? So these two plasma proteins are synthesized by the liver, and now the function of plasma proteins are what we are supposed to know. Albumin will maintain the osmotic balance. It maintains osmotic balance. So imagine that you are having a blood vessel like this, and inside this blood vessel blood is flowing. Now the blood is having a fluid compartment, a fluid component, and this fluid component of the blood is called by the name of plasma. Now this fluid component, whichever you call it by the name of plasma, this plasma itself is having maximum amount of water, isn't it? 90 to 92% of plasma is composed of water. It has a high chance of going away from the blood vessel into the surrounding spaces. So this movement of fluid part of the blood from the blood vessel to outside the surrounding environment of blood vessels has to be prevented, and this is prevented by albumin, right? So this is prevented by albumin, and that is why we say it maintains the osmotic balance. It will prevent the fluid loss from the blood. It will prevent the accumulation of fluid outside the blood vessels. It will prevent the formation of edema. So if there is excessive water outside, excessive fluid, if it is coming out of the blood vessel, you will say this person is having edema. This is the cause of edema, right? That is why you will get this in liver disease, kidney disease, because liver itself is producing albumin. So if there is a disease to the liver, albumin is not synthesized properly. So this osmotic balance will be lost whenever a person is having a liver disease. Now fibrinogen will help in blood clotting. This is the function. Now clotting, if you talk about how a clot is formed here, it's a bit difficult pathway to remember. But yeah, there is a big paragraph which is there in textbook. We are supposed to remember each and every sentence of that. So we'll discuss that when time comes. But yes, fibrinogen is one of the very important clotting factor that helps in clotting. There are many factors. Out of that, one of them is fibrinogen, which is a plasma protein. Right? So this is the very important aspect. It is helping in blood clotting. It is a component of the pathway by which a clot is produced. So this is the importance of fibrinogen. What about globulin? You might have heard, I don't know if you have heard it, you might have heard of gamma globulin. Right? So this is the other name for antibodies. So antibodies are actually gamma globulins. So antibodies will perform the function of defense, right? So who is going to produce antibody? Antibody will actually give you something called by the name of humoral response, humoral immunity. Humoral immunity is the type of immunity which is actually mediated by antibody. Antibodies will provide humoral immunity. It's a type of immunity. Now the concepts of immunity will be taught in the class 12, isn't it? So this is a very important feature to remember. Now it is providing immunity. Antibody, it is simply globulin itself. Now it will provide defense. It provides immunity. So this is providing defense. Who is going to synthesize globulins? Who is going to synthesize globulins? Globulins are synthesized by the lymphocytes. Typically, if I say B lymphocytes, this is most specific answer, right? Who will synthesize? Gamma globulins, it will synthesize, or globulins are synthesized by the lymphocytes, and they help in providing the defense to the body. Whenever a pathogen comes to the body, whenever an antigen comes into the body, this antibody will go and attack it, it will kill it, and thus it will prevent you from getting a disease. Now this is what is meant by the defense action, and this defense action is mediated by gamma globulins, which means antibody, which is a globulin obviously. So globulin has the function of defense. It is therefore produced by lymphocytes. What are lymphocytes? It's a type of WBC cells. You have many types of WBC cells: neutrophil, eosinophil, monocyte, lymphocyte, isn't it? Basophil. So these are the types of the WBC. One of the type of lymphocyte is B cells, B lymphocytes. We will be discussing that in the subsequent module. So this is the basic feature of the plasma protein, their function and their site of production. Remember, maximum amount of plasma proteins is, if you talk about the total plasma proteins in the blood, maximum is contributed by albumin. So albumin is the plasma protein which is present in maximum amount. It can be a question. Now this was asked as a master folio question some years ago, right? So this is a very important feature. Now let us understand certain other points with this. Now let me suppose that we are having a test tube like this. Now in this particular test tube that I am making right here, let us suppose that you are filling it with blood. Let us suppose you are filling it with blood, and let the blood be somewhere like this, isn't it? Yeah. So if you keep it somewhere like somewhat like this, within 3 to 5 minutes, what will happen if I just keep my blood inside a test tube like this? Within 3 to 5 minutes, what will happen? A clot is produced, isn't it? A clot is produced, and we know that a clot is produced with the help of certain factors which are present inside the blood, right? Fibrinogen is one such factor. So when a clot is produced inside the blood, the fibrinogen is used up. The fibrinogen is used up. The other clotting factors which are present inside the blood are also used up. So whatever factors are there for the formation of a clot in the blood, all of them are used up to form this kind of a clot. So the clot will be somewhat like this, and the clot will actually be present at one position itself. So this is how a clot is produced within some time. And after the clot is produced, you are having the blood where there are no more clotting factors available. All the clotting factors which were there inside the plasma were used up to form the clot. So this plasma, now you are going to have a plasma minus clotting factors. Plasma minus clotting factors is what you call by the name of serum. Right? So this is a very important point to remember here. Plasma minus clotting factors is called by the name of serum. So out of this plasma, let the plasma stand over there. Let the fluid part of the blood stand over there. Let it clot on itself. After clotting, whatever is left other than the clot, remove the clot and throw it away. Whatever is left is plasma minus clotting factors. Why are there no clotting factors here? Clotting factors were used up to form the clot. Now whatever clot is there, we have removed it. So all the clotting factors are removed. Now whatever we are left with is plasma. This is called by the name of serum. Right? So this is all that I would like to cover as far as the theoretical part in this particular module is concerned. Let us actually try to solve certain questions now, 1 or 2 questions, and then we will end this video. So finally, let us try to solve these 2 questions here. In adult human beings, hematopoiesis, that means hemato, blood, poiesis, that means formation, blood formation, or I can say blood production. It occurs in which of the following? In adult human beings, obviously, the only site where blood is produced is the bone marrow, right? So this is the only site, and so for this answer I will be marking, and so for this question I will be marking option 4 as the answer, right? Now this is the next question, that is in 2015, that is erythropoiesis starts in, that means in the intrauterine life. Where is it actually starting? In the intrauterine life, that means before birth, within the mother's body, while in the initial few days, in the very much initial days, it is the yolk sac, which is a structure inside the embryo. So yolk sac is a structure inside the embryo, and it is in the yolk sac that the erythropoiesis or the hematopoiesis, both means blood formation, is happening. So this is the initial, very initial part, the first structure inside the body to produce blood, that is yolk sac. But now it is regressed. See, it is only in the initial part of pregnancy that the child will actually produce blood from the yolk sac, and then it is taken over by the liver. Right? Initially it is in the yolk sac. Most initial time it is from the yolk sac, and then the liver takes over the function of erythropoiesis from the yolk sac, and finally this is taken over by the bone marrow. Now I don't see yolk sac in any of these 4 options, so this is not the answer here. Now liver is seen in here, so I will be marking option 1 as the correct answer. So this is the option here. Had there been yolk sac, I would have taken yolk sac, because the yolk sac is the first area from where blood is produced. So this is how we come to the end of this particular video. In the next lecture, in the next video, we will look into the cellular components, and we have certain questions from there also. So we have not yet seen the formed elements. We will define them, we will find the normal values, and we will just try to understand their functions, and then we will directly go into the blood grouping area. Blood grouping is our next topic, so we'll do that in the next video. So with that, I'm coming to the end of this video. So if you like this, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Click the bell icon to receive notification whenever I upload a new video on YouTube. Thank you.